is going on, Secondhand Talent family? It's your boy Steiner here. As always, we have a very special episode this week. Joining us all the way from Ypsilanti, Michigan. Don't ask me how to spell it. We have all five of the members of the Rockin' Improv Jam band Stormy Chromer, who I believe are now in their 10th year now of making the incredible music that they do. Boys, thank you so much for being on the show. It's great to have y'all.
Yeah, thanks for having us,
And
man. We're excited to be here.
here's how it's going to go because we only have a couple mics and a lot of people. So for our viewers and for our viewers, you can see that there are multiple people on screen. For our listeners, just so you know, we're trying something new here at Secondhand Talent. We have the whole band, Stormy Chromer, here with us today. So we are going to have introductions. You know who I am, so we don't need to talk about that. But starting with,
Yeah, thanks for having us, man. Yeah, my name is Amin. I'm the drummer for Stormy Chromer here. I also do a good amount of work on the back end of things, booking, promotion. I'm a gear nerd and kind of sound tech at the shows and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's me.
Hey Steiner, my name's Jordan. I play keys in Stormy Chromer. I also help out with some of the social media aspects uh, to help out with a little bit of the booking, and I'm excited to now be the video editor for the band as of recently.
right on.
I'm Brendan. I play guitar and sing, and I do mixing for our live recordings, or I'll be doing the mixing for this probably as well. Occasional like graphic design for certain things, stuff like that.
So I'm gonna need some notes from you about to help me out with some stuff. I'm kidding. No.
Got you.
I'm Ryan King. I'm the bass player, do some vocals as well. I help out with various things like graphic design in the band, done some booking in the past, and some merch management as well.
Right on. And last but not least,
I am Spencer. I play guitar. I do a little bit of singing, not as much as these guys. Kind of help out here and there, doing whatever odd job, and do a lot of driving the van.
that is key. Well, guys, it's fantastic to have you all here. Thank you all so much for elocuting your roles so well within the band. And normally we start out by asking, well, hmm, I had to think that I might want to do something a little different, but you know what? I'm a nut for consistency. So let's keep it consistent. Folks, if you had never heard the term secondhand talent, we'll just get a brief thought from each of you. Like somebody says to you, secondhand talent, you never heard it, those two words put together before. What does that mean to you?
I would think initially that secondhand talent is like talent that you got from somebody else. So like maybe you learned it along the way, or somebody passed it to you in a way.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah, I would. Well, secondhand always makes me think of my favorite store, which is the thrift store. So maybe talent you got at a thrift store, something like that.
Right on. Right on. Like
Maybe,
like
maybe a
like
girl you picked up at a thrift store. That's my
we're
first
gonna put
thought.
heavy air quotes around the term thrift store in that case example there.
I guess secondhand. I guess I'm thinking like hand me down. Like you got all your stuff from your parents when they didn't want the stuff anymore. Like, and the talent. That's just like the talent you get from you know getting these things secondhand from them.
Right on.
Yeah, I'm going to go in a different direction here. We're thinking about the hands, okay? Think about the hands for a second. You got your primary hand. If you're not ambidextrous, I'm right-handed. And so when I think about my second hand, that's my left hand. You need both to not only handle the bass guitar, but you need both to handle the tasks that you need to accomplish to run a band yourself.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think I can follow that up. I think secondhand talent, pass.
You know what? That was my initial reaction when I thought of the podcast idea. But I'm glad we decided to forge ahead with it. Secondhand
Yeah.
talent pass is actually probably the most accurate statement I've heard. It's also the most consistent reply from advertisers. So if anybody's out there and
Zing them.
would like to sponsor the show, I do want to thank Tenacious Toys for providing us with the lovely desk candy here. Not counting you out, Benny. I love you, but
Yeah.
folks, I need to get paid, so pay me.
Yeah.
Yeah, folks, we're recording this on our end. Hopefully it's looking great at this point when you're seeing the video. But we got two GoPros. So if GoPro, we already have two GoPros. GoPro, if you want to sponsor us and our boy Steiner here, we will put way more GoPros up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look,
Put as many as we send.
there's a phrase that I like to use that has to do with situations like this, and that phrase is at the time of this tape, right? At the time of this taping, it may not look and sound great, and at the time of this taping, we may be sponsorless and broke, but at the time of airing,
Who knows?
and that is the magic of secondhand talent. It is
Well,
something that happens alongside what we are doing as entertainers, whether everybody else knows it or not, right? So you guys all really hit different elements of it besides for the most, all-encompassing one, which is secondhand talent past. But secondhand talent is really all of those things. And the reason I love hearing about the different elements of what, you guys do is that those are all elements of secondhand talent. We like to say on the show, secondhand talent is doing their job right. The casual fan in attendance doesn't know we're there. So like you don't know the front of house guy is there
right on. Yeah.
until it breaks. How do you guys balance having all those responsibilities and then taking that into the show and on the road?
It is tough. I think for me, especially, so like I love, there's all like the office work stuff, and we do all that in house as well, the booking and the promo and stuff. But I like genuinely love like stagehand work. I like setting things up. I get a sense of pride in like a well set up stage, a good sounding stage, a good looking stage. So like when we pull up to a show, I really enjoy that work, and I've done that sort of work at like festivals and stuff like that. I've done some stage managing and things like that, and it definitely is. I definitely want to be able to do that work and understand it, but it is tough to do both. To be in a position where you have to get there early, and you have to set up everything, and then you have to get in the zone to be creative, and then you have to be
Exactly. Yep.
creative, and then you have to tear it all down. So um, I think for me, the way I do it is it's sort of like a weird feedback loop where because I enjoy the work, it simultaneously takes and gives me energy. So it's
Sure.
exhausting, but it's also kind of propels me forward. I definitely think it's something that could burn. Like you said, we've been doing this for about 10 years. I don't think being my own stagehand is like the end goal. But it is possible for a time until we can get to a point where we can have some more help on tour and some more help, in the venue and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, sorry, well, I was gonna say, leading on to it, I would love to hear each of you kind of talk about this because there's different aspects to what you all do that filter into how exhausting you are, and I'm glad that we're gonna end with driving because I have some notes on that. But let's keep rolling along here. It's very insightful. You don't want to be your own stagehand at the end of the day, but if you're doing it for the love of the game, you truly love doing what you're doing. That is gonna make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think there's a balance that you have to strike. Doing all the preparation for the show and getting everything ready, and then kind of switching your mind into a different place. Um, I think for me, the ultimate state of mind when you're stepping onto stage is just completely empty and just kind of being open to what's happening now. And so sometimes I can definitely feel myself being caught in the details of what happened before the show,
Sure.
that shouldn't affect the music. But so there is a balancing act there where you're trying to, but it's also it's kind of a good practice to to not let little things get in the way of the moment. So if you are, if there's something wrong with the stage or if we're behind schedule or whatever, if you have your hand in those things and you feel responsible for them, it can be tricky to
Mm,
let that go and just focus on the music. Whereas, if someone else was taking care of that stuff, you might not even know and be,
right.
a little more easily present in the moment. But like I said, it's a good practice to remain in the moment at the time because things will go wrong and always do, and that's part of it. And rolling with the punches is kind of a good practice for being in a jam band and improvising.
Yeah,
So,
so if I'm hearing you right, like on the one hand, there's a certain sort of sense of pride in the fact that you're accomplishing all these other things, but it becomes a bit trickier when you're trying to enter in onto the stage and to create music, like you said, with that open-headedness, I believe was the term that you use, and to kind of go into it, empty receptacle, ready to fill it up. But if you've been working on all of these little details and something does happen, that there's nobody, like it's not like there's somebody running around to patch it up, before you notice. You were the one who put it together. So that is gonna maybe cause a little bit of static in your thought process as you're up there. Hey, whoa, you guys
oh,
there?
hey, we're
We
back.
got you back.
We're back.
Oh, snap. I was like, holy shit, like they're listening like so intently. And I was like,
That's funny.
Yeah, it was like connecting to our.
I am not this fucking interesting.
Well, that's a perfect segue into
So this
some of our
is
gear.
ladies and gentlemen, this is secondhand talent at work.
We just
This
secondhanded that situation.
we're not editing any of that,
Yeah.
okay? Because sometimes things in life happen and you just can't edit it. You got, like you're saying, roll with the punches. You have to just kind of have, and it's good because I thought you guys were all listening intently, so I was just talking. And it's gonna look and it's gonna look hilarious when I'm editing this footage and I find that clip and cut that out because that's our commercial right there, and that's how we do
Yeah.
things here at Secondhand Talent. But realistically, things happen. Like at the time of this taping, uh, for example, this morning, my brother got Taylor Swifted, and somebody wrote a breakup song about him, and it is a banger.
Nice.
It's a banger. And they
Yeah,
released it on
very
Valentine's Day.
Oh.
Oh shit.
It's like literally today, and my our younger brother, who he does a show with, got an advance copy, and they were gonna do a BLP kosher reaction, but our brother surprised him with uh his getting swifted moment, and it's beautiful. And we're going to link that video in the description so everybody can watch it. But the point of it
Click that
is, like,
video, folks.
sometimes stuff like that happens and there's nothing you can do about it and it's out of your control. So what did they do? They made a reaction video to it. And they're like, we're going to talk about this because it's here and we're dealing with it. And that's, when you're working on the fly in a situation, like you're on stage, most relatable experience I think that would fit this model is breaking a string or a stick, right? One of those things happening, and you just kind of have to stop, fix it, patch it up, and the rest of the band needs to just kind of, oh, broken string. Okay.
Mhm.
Keep on keep on trucking and making that solution. But you guys, the way you've been describing it and the way this has played out technologically over the last few minutes, like this is like real time stop, drop, and roll shit that like is not as simple as repairing a string. Like, what's an example of a time where you're in a show and something ate? Oh, he's already handing the mic back to me, so I know I've got a story here. Fantastic. What's an
Yeah.
example of a time where something wayward just happens?
So we were playing a festival last summer, and we were about 20 minutes into a 60-minute set, maybe 30 minutes into a 60-minute set, and there was an ice cream truck behind the tent we were playing in, and they plugged their power into the stage power and blew the power to the whole stage. And we decided, like, we were looking out in the crowd and people were like, so everything, you can't hear anything but the drums at this point, right? um or I think we lost half the power on the stage.
It was all the pedal boards and
Yeah, so
stuff
I
too.
think bass might have been going still. There was like something minimal, but we looked out and we realized that like most people in the tent didn't really notice. So we just kept playing. I played drums, drum solo slash bass accompanied drums for like 12 minutes until the power was back, and then we just rolled back into the jam that we were doing and back into the material. And yeah, that's in a situation where it worked out well. There's been plenty of situations where like that thing sort of snowballs and becomes like a, oh fuck, get me off this stage kind of thing.
We've had a handful of moments too where it wasn't necessarily a technical issue, but it was somebody shutting us off, like the
Oh,
cops
wow.
or
Okay.
whatever. And every single one of those shows was so good. You could tell like we were in the middle of the hottest jam, and it just
Always. I
disappeared.
mean, that's gonna happen when, it's always gonna happen. Like, I feel like that there's some sort of law of physics that states this, that those issues are always gonna come up at the most inopportune times.
Murphy's Law or something like that. There's some Murphy's
Yeah,
Law or something like that.
yeah, Murphy's Law, Occam's razor. There's so many different things I could pretend that it is.
Yeah, I've seen
I,
some movies. I know some
I,
words.
yeah, I have a dictionary over there too.
Sort of
Um,
like Schrodinger's cat, 'cause you don't really know where that what that jam was gonna be. Could have been the worst jam ever. You never know.
Hypothetically, it's the best thing you ever played, right? Like, but let's get back to, let's be really real about it for a sec. Like, let's hear it, because sure, when it works out, it's great. But in my experience, at least, and I'm sure this is translatable to things besides for stand-up comedy and podcasting, you know, it's those more painful experiences that we really grow from. And if you guys are, have been together, you guys have been making music for damn near a decade, right? Adversity is gonna roll your way. And part of, part of what we like to do on the show is we talk a lot about musical education. We opened the season up with Freak Bass. We had Ellis Goddard from Mockingbird Foundation. Go to mbird.org, support Mockingbird Foundation. It's a great charity. They provide music education grants across the United States. But one thing you can't teach is something that happens and just reacting to it in the moment, and it's not necessarily a positive experience or something as easy as the cops showed up, which might make for a great story. But I'm curious if you guys have any examples of like more technical things that have really hindered some of the show process.
We were driving out to Colorado one year to do a string of shows, and our transmission blew, and that was a hell of a time. That was, I think, the most stressful time on the road, at least
Walk
for
us
me.
so let's walk us through. I want to hear now. Okay, that's a perfect example, because that's not something like, you're five guys traveling. I want to hear everybody's perspective and on what happened when the transmission blew, and what, like, before, instead of just going over like beginning to end, like, talk me through this situation.
Um, so about maybe a week or two before we decided to go on tour, we realized that somebody stole our catalytic converter, and yeah, nicked the transmission line. What a jerk! And we
Yeah, they
got
couldn't even steal it clean.
yeah.
Like they
It's,
had to fuck up our transmission while in the process.
it's a
So
secondhand thief.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
So we repaired it in some ways that may or may not be legal, but we were driving all the way to Colorado. We figured, hey, it's not too bad. We'll just kind of top off the transmission fluid every gas station
Yeah,
stop.
'cause it just had a leak, so it's like you just tap it off, right?
You just tap it off a little bit. It'll
Just
be
gotta
fine
tap it
getting
off
you
a little
down the
bit
road.
on our way to the
Yeah,
Rockies.
And I think we were in Iowa, maybe
Des Moines,
Des Moines, yeah.
Des
yep.
Moines, Iowa.
And
That's where it
yeah,
all happens all the
Yeah.
time.
yeah, we just
Oh,
kind of were able to pull off the highway, and that was it. We couldn't go any further.
Yeah, we're lucky it blew because we were driving through a whole lot of nothing for a long time, and then it happened to blow
yeah.
right when we were passing Des Moines, so we actually like had somewhere to be, which was nice.
True.
But it was also kind of wacky because it was the Iowa State Fair, which is a giant event, and it was also the Democratic National Convention in an election year, so, being hosted in Des Moines that day. So like the city was packed, every hotel room was like booked. There was like every Democratic candidate at that point in the race was like in town with like their buses and stuff. So, yeah, it was tough to deal with. We went to a
well, Applebee's, so we could
yeah,
get some
Applebee's had a
margaritas.
dollar Mai Tai thing going on, so we were like, let's just go to Applebee's and drink dollar Mai Tais and be sad, and that's what we did, and it worked out.
Shout out to my buddies in Des Moines. That is the most Des Moines thing I have ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the night that it blew, we were on our way to play a show in Omaha. So in terms of reacting, we had to we were on the clock with trying to get there. So once it became clear that we weren't going to be fixing the van, it was an immediate contact the venue.
Yeah,
Um, and I think we had a couple shows lined up in Colorado in the next few days, but we're aiming towards, I think about a week from that day, we're aiming towards the big show in Denver at a venue called Your Mom's House. So shout out to Your Mom's House in Denver. So we really wanted to make sure we at least got to that show. So in the Applebee's, we hatched the brilliant plan to start a GoFundMe, and we realized really quickly that we were going to be able to get the money to buy a new van. And that day rented a Durango, I think, or
We rented it was some sort of minivan, caravan,
yeah,
Dodge Caravan. It was a minivan.
loaded all of us and all of the gear into it.
I'd like to point out it was so cramped. We had gear on our laps, and we opened up all the drums and put gear inside of the drums.
Yeah, because
no.
we were touring in a big full-sized van, and then we had to downsize to a minivan because for some reason, I don't know if this ever made sense, but we were like, we have to buy a van back home. Like we didn't want to buy a van there for some reason. I don't know. We were like younger and didn't understand. So we were like, okay, first step, get home. So we rented a minivan, packed it, drove home, bought a new van, and drove back.
I think the reasoning behind that was because the hotel rooms were so expensive in
Oh,
Des
maybe
Moines
that
that
was it.
we didn't want to keep
So
buying.
that to me is the funniest part about this whole story is just the concept of there not being an available hotel room in Des Moines. Like I
Yeah, that's
like
pretty funny.
I like see now, but that's like the classic example of why this can be such an issue is because not only does it happen, at any given time, but the time when it happens is, and I just want to put it out there that Iowa is the state that this happens in every time. Like, and you do, where in Iowa? I don't know, Council Bluffs, Des Moines, it doesn't matter. Iowa City,
Quad
but
Cities, baby.
somewhere, there you go. Somewhere in Iowa, there's either going to be a blizzard in July, your transmission is going to get scraped, or you're going to go back to Michigan to buy a new van. One of those things is going to happen, and it's going to be while you're in Iowa. So, about that note about having that bigger show in your sights, though, was it kind of this right away, like when you realized that this was going to be something that this isn't something we can fix, and there's no band-aid for this, this is a problem. Did you immediately, so you had mentioned, briefly, you were calling the venues right away. Um, what was the reaction and was it kind of like a unanimous, okay, we need to focus on the big show here. Let's maybe cut around these little shows. What was that? Talk me through that like navigation of logistics because some people are it's not always going to be the best solution for everyone.
Yeah, I think all we had was we had that show in Omaha the night that the night that we broke down. And I don't think we had anything else other than like a small gig that was just sort of like, uh, it was like a Tuesday gig that would just sort of like help pay for the tour, but it wasn't like one of those shows that we were really like actively promoting and trying to like get people to. Um, if I remember correctly, we also had a stream. So we wanted to be in Denver. I think we broke down on Sunday, and we wanted to be in Denver by Wednesday to do this stream. And I'm pretty sure we made it. I can't remember. Yeah, I think that stream. Shout out to our boy Logan and what is it called? Camera Jams. Look up Camera Jams on YouTube. All sorts of awesome sets on there. He streams from his house. Cool stuff. But so, yeah, it was like a 4-day turnaround. And I mean, as far as what shows to do, and it was basically just like a restrictions of the situation. Like we clearly cannot get to Omaha right now. What is the soonest we can get to Denver? Probably Wednesday. Let's make it happen. And everybody was really awesome through that situation. And I think it's cool and makes me very proud of this team of people that when we hit an roadblock like that, it's very much just like, all right, what do we do? Everyone's just like, what's the solution? And while there are moments of like despair and difficulty, for the most part, we're still just like focusing on next steps, you know?
Right on.
Yeah, I mean it's a strange feeling to be in the middle. I think that tour was planned well in advance for maybe 2 weeks, week and a half, something like that, and it was a really strange experience to be in the middle of it at home, right?
Yeah,
You know,
that
you're
was- that did
supposed
feel
like
very strange.
it's supposed to be out west.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean to come back, to drive back, I mean Des Moines to Ypsilanti, that's probably 8 or 9 hours.
See.
Buy a van, get in the car. We drove nonstop to Denver. You know, left at 5 p.m. here. We got in at like, I don't know, sometime in the morning, 7 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9. I don't even know. But I
Yeah.
mean, we just, switched off, and before you knew it, we're back on track. Pretty crazy. And, it's, I can only speak for myself, but getting older, that sounds harder and harder to pull something off like that. So we're lucky that
Yeah.
when we had to do it, we were
Yeah.
young bucks.
Yeah, I don't know how that would go. I don't know how that would go now. I don't bounce back like
So
I used to.
for context on that note, so what year are we talking about here that this took place?
It was 2018 or 19, summer of 2018 or 19.
So I would say I would say that argue that that's actually in the grand scheme of things, looking back, and I'm curious to get your take on that. I would argue, with the benefit of hindsight, that that's actually probably pretty fortuitous time with regards to where you were at as far as being a band for several years already, being able to problem solve and troubleshoot on the fly and
Yeah.
find those solutions. Like that type of camaraderie and problem solving doesn't come right away with any group in any project, let alone, traveling on the road as as a group of musicians. Can you speak to that experience a little bit of what it's like to have that trust in each other that they're going to get done right?
I would definitely say it was fortuitous timing for me because I was not in the band yet at that point. So I was at home.
Yeah, everybody.
I was at home and watching it from my couch.
You gave it the GoFundMe, right?
I did. I gave 20 big boy dollars to the GoFundMe. But yeah, it was definitely fortuitous timing for me. What about you, Spencer?
Yeah,
For the
it was-
guys,
it was,
yeah.
it was really stressful, but there's something about kind of being in that stressful kind of environment that at least kind of really puts me in the slot. And it was just like, all right, we're going, let's do this. There wasn't a doubt in my mind that we were not going to be able to complete the tour. And I think the shows we played for the remainder of that tour were really, really on point.
So we're talking then about 2018, 2019. The time of this taping, it's 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Right. So it's been a long season, folks. It's been a long season. We a lot going on. We got a lot more to do. But if we can move on to the this side of the screen real quick. And I don't know in the camera which way this is going to have me pointing, but I believe we're going to go to the driving end of the spectrum here. I got some
Okay,
All
things to,
cool.
right.
yeah. All right. When did you become the driver? Like, how did that happen? I'm always curious about the role of the driver in the in band dynamic because know who has filled those roles when I was on the road in the past, and sometimes it's a democratic process, sometimes it gets naturally assumed, sometimes it's rock paper scissors. Curious to hear how this got settled.
Well, I'm not the sole driver. We all split it up pretty evenly. I just really like driving. Uh,
Y'all got
so a lot
lucky.
of times I just like volunteer and just go like, hey, I'll, drive this leg of the trip. And, my 4 hour shift ends up being a 6, 7 hour shift.
Yeah, Spencer also is the like caretaker of the van. Like it's his daily driver. It's his car
Yeah, my
basically.
my car broke
Um,
down and I try to take care of the van
Gotcha.
now.
yeah, his car broke down. But like, and part of that is because when we had this fiasco happen, we had to get a loan. So basically, the van is technically in Spencer's name. The loan that we got for the van is in our name, and the insurance and stuff is in his name. So he's the one. He keeps it, in ship shape with oil changes and all that stuff, and
New windshield
make sure it always
wipers.
smells like a fresh burrito in there. And
Right.
you know,
And that's essential. I mean, that Yankee Candle when they put out that fresh burrito one, they really cracked the code with how and it changed the game. I mean, honestly, it's fine that we had COVID for me for them to be able to have the time to crank that out. Uh, I don't know what I'm saying half the time, folks. You guys know that. Uh, now that you guys have gotten out of Iowa, finally, and first now Ypsilanti not only sounds funny and is spelled funny, but it's in Michigan, which is right which
yes.
is right by the Midwest, which
Yes.
is where I am here in Chicago. Recently relocated from a high-end suburb outside of Bend, Oregon, as our
Oh, okay.
viewers know very well. They might not know, actually, to be honest. It's a joke I made on my siblings show, and I just realized that. Um, see what we did there? Um, treating people right is such an important part of this industry. It's part of it comes from experiences like that when you have to know how to treat each other right. And that comes from treating yourselves right. Right. And I think one thing that would be really cool, in this, as we mentioned, it's my first time interviewing a unit. I'd love to hear from each of you, um, something that you found out about yourself in this process on the road where you were like, this is either a really like this is a really good thing that I do. Like if it's like something that you carried into like life on the road or
Mm-hmm.
something that, you had an experience where something was really stressing you out and you found a way to kind of overcome that because look, like it's fucking life is stressful by itself, right? And being on the road in a van with a group of people, like shit happens. And I think in the spirit of kind of handing down that information to the next generation. One thing you can't teach is experience, but one thing we can do is, give relatable experiences. So I'm curious if we can get like a little snippet from each of you guys of like a behavior that you acknowledge, learned, or developed that has kind of helped you be better on the road.
I think just being on the road is such a stressful thing that um, it's impossible to kind of be on your best behavior at all times, and just kind of learning to deal with your brother's problems and knowing that they're going to deal with your problems. It's really a trust building exercise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of trust between the people. Uh, there's a lot of like, I think each of us has had moments on the road where it's sort of like, a breaking point or sort of like a moment that makes you go, oh, something's not working. And like, there are things like exercise, making sure that we have adequate space away from each other sometimes. Like there's just like little things that you learn as you go. And I think that for me personally, a big one was just like sobriety. Like I'm not 100% sober. I partake. I smoke weed. I may drink occasionally down the line, but I've cut booze from my routine for the time being just because it's very draining on me. And, you know, you kind of realize what your things are that keep you level and grounded. And for me, it's like, you know, exercise, relatively consistent exercise, and kind of keeping like a clear head on my shoulders. And that's been years of getting myself to an uncomfortable place before I'm able to like acknowledge where that discomfort's coming from and like work on those things. So it really just takes time to dial, and it's different for everybody, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, I think if I had one thing to try and share with like a younger band or something, someone who's listening or anybody who's going on tour, I would say it's going to be really exciting and also really stressful. And if you can get through the first evening without going way too hard on yourself, either not sleeping, partying too hard, or just like wearing yourself out, driving the van, playing the show, staying up, sleep is important too. So prioritizing the first night, just like taking care of your health will kind of set you up
You got to set
for
the
the rest
tone,
of it.
boys. You got to
Right.
set the tone.
Which for the record is, I'm saying this because I have traditionally not ever done that. And I always wake up day two of tour hurting. But yeah, that's
Day
something I'm
two,
working on,
yeah, day two can't feel like week two.
Right.
Exactly. Or it
Especially if
can
you're
be,
still
yeah.
up.
It can feel like week two.
Or it can be still day one, like Ryan was saying. Yes. Right.
Day two is even worse then. I think something that was already touched on, but is really really valuable for anyone that's doing this, or even doing it like something similar where you're traveling a lot, especially if you're traveling with a group. But the ability to cultivate your own space, especially in like the confines of a
Absolutely.
shared hotel room or a van. So there are different ways around that, whether it's noise canceling headphones or a mask or something where you can trick yourself into thinking you're on your own, and also taking for me at least, like taking walks around the areas you're in because you're traveling. It's an opportunity, even if you don't have time to go see maybe the sites or go to you may not have time to go get like the meal you want, or whatever, but just like taking 20 minutes, 30 minutes to walk. That helps me a lot. And the cool thing is that if you can cultivate those behaviors in as chaotic and intense of a situation as a tour, then you bring those home and you're able to integrate them into your life so much easier because you're not in that chaotic environment, and that I think leads to consistent healthy behavior.
That's a great point. Something that you develop under pressure is going to last and will be very much easier than something that you're just trying. Last but not least.
Yeah, so like I've never really, for the longest time, never really considered myself like a particularly business savvy person. Like I kind of always just wanted to play the guitar, and like I never knew, like it took me a really long time to like feel comfortable like in a role like doing, some of the more logistical side of things on the road and whatnot. And
Mhm.
we were always talking about like, trying to, you know, we've got all this time traveling to the next gig on tour or whatever. And so I'm like trying to mix the night before shows from like, so we can have it like released like as we go, and we can just keep doing that. And like, I feel like I struggled a lot with a lot of that kind of stuff for a long time. But like having the experience and just being able to do it kind of consistently, it was really difficult at first for me to feel comfortable, but like over time, I finally felt like this is something legitimate that like I can do. Like I've been like doing this for like 5 years in the band now, and like I can take that into like my life outside the band now. Like I feel like I'm comfortable enough with it that I can just do that, and that's kind of just kind of have a sense of pride in that now, which is just like kind of weird how that just like happened. And so that's just a really cool thing, you know. I found other
Well,
skills that I had and whatnot.
and I feel like, and first of all, I mean, all great examples, and I think it kind of gets to the point, and correct me if I'm wrong, but where it kind of sometimes just feels like, oh, it just happened, but really, it's like you did mention it, it's years of work that leads to building up and to getting into that place where you feel that confident.
Absolutely.
I mean, just
I
like
just
any, okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, it seems like I woke up feeling confident in it one day, I suppose,
Mm.
and I
Well,
didn't think I would.
that's the trick of practice. And I mean, I want to bring this into the musical sense, but just starting as how I can relate to it as a comedian, we rehearse in the same way, you write a joke the same way you would write a song, right? And you practice it. And I think there comes a moment, for me and I would say the open mic setting, and I'm curious to hear from your perspective as a group about the studio. But as you're running through something and as you're practicing and rehearsing, you kind of get to a moment where you're like, oh, that's it. That's it. It clicked. It fell into place. Everything just kind of went shoo. And then it does kind of feel like, well, how did we never have this together like this before? It must have always been like this. I mean, can you speak to a moment recently, maybe in the studio or something like that, where you kind of have that bit of like, musical clicking where it's like something you'd been working on for a while and it's just like all of a sudden now you're looking back at it. Because I mean, a track like Piece of Pizza or Pizza Mind, right? Like that clearly have been developed over time. Do you look back at songs like those now, for example, and be like, we never know?
I do actually have one that comes to mind. We've been like in the studio recording a new album over the past 6 months or so at this point, and there's a song that I wrote that's just kind of an instrumental, like acoustic guitar thing, and we've got like plans for it, but we got Jordan in here like on all these different keyboards and stuff, and also they had this like I wrote it on just like a 6 string acoustic guitar, but they had like a what was called the Nashville tuning guitar, like acoustic guitar, which is all the high strings of a 12 string guitar and not the low strings.
Oh,
And he was like, "Ooh, check this out! Like overdubbed with this." And so now it just sounds like a 12 string guitar layered, like with all these layers and stuff. And then we got him playing this like sexy like synth solo over it in the background. I remember I was in the studio just like in tears, just like listening to it, just like how like beautiful it sounded already, and it was just like amazing. So that was one of those moments for me.
Yeah, that was a nice click kind of moment where it was cool where Jordan was just like, I'm just gonna try something out. And he did like one take and we were just like, that's the best. Like keep it. We're keeping that forever. I also think that like the opposite of that happens a lot. So since Jordan joined the band, which has been about 2 years now, like we are obviously revisiting all of our old songs that were written to just not that they were not written to have keys, and now we have keys. Um, so we are going back and kind of reimagining things, and I think a lot of times in our lifetime, it's that thing that you're talking about does happen, but it happens like so many years later. Like there are songs that we wrote 10 years ago that we played a month ago that was like the first time that I was like, this is how this song should sound. You know,
what a feeling.
sometimes, yeah, you know.
And I think that's also from like, going to the sentiment that we were talking about of like growth happening when you're not realizing it, and then there being the moment is like we were growing as songwriters and our tastes were evolving throughout that 10-year period. And it's funny, we joke around about this in rehearsal when we're showing Jordan. He's like, we're walking him through one of these old songs. He's like, so what's the form? Like, how does it? And we're like, yeah, like what's the progression? Yeah, sure,
Yeah,
So it's
you were just saying. Tell me. Yeah.
right. So it's yeah, it's like at back in the day, maybe that didn't matter so much to us because
Mm.
our standards were lower for what we considered to be a well-crafted song. So it forces us to actually evaluate what we have been doing, come up with answers, and then that leads to like, okay, so this is the thing, which enables this is like the part which enables everyone to play it much more confidently.
Yeah, like just earlier today in rehearsal, we were uh, practicing a song and we went back to our old tempo spreadsheet. And the tempo notes we had in the song were just like, we haven't referenced the tempo spreadsheet in a while. And we've been playing the song, and the old tempos were so fast. And we were like, wow. So at some point, we thought the song should be this fast. And now it just feels ridiculous to play it that fast because it just naturally got slower over the years.
I think an interesting thing that's kind of happened too is in this process of adding Jordan to the band is me and Brendan oftentimes would try to kind of sound like a synth part or find something that we knew guitar wasn't necessarily right for this part, and we were just kind of trying our best. We've got a lot of guitar pedals and stuff to try to make it sound like a pad
How
or
to make a guitar not sound like a guitar.
yeah, and in kind of reevaluating these parts, it's letting us kind of let the song be what it actually should have been. Now that we have somebody who can actually play, you know, laser beam sounds and whatnot.
So the See, things just happen for a reason sometimes. But that's a great point. Sometimes, you're just at a place where how you hear it or how you feel it should go in your head is yeah, you're working with what you got. You're trying to use effects, like you said, I mean, try to make a guitar not sound like a guitar. Um, I again can't really relate to it in that sense because I only collaborate with the voices in my own head. But it's gotta be a great feeling of accomplishment to be able to come together as a group and reach those places where, you play it and you have that I think as you put it, like, "Oh, this is how the song was supposed to be." Kind of. I mean, it's gotta feel great when you're running through those old songs now. I mean, Jordan, how does that feel to be, you know, that person who's asking those tougher questions and helping this process flow along?
It's very fun. It's a very fun job. Uh, I want to just point out that the thing that I'm asked to do most is wow. That's pretty much what I'm asked to do all the time for every song. Some version of that. And I
Uh,
and I try and withhold it from them, so they keep asking me. But um,
withhold the brown. Is that
yeah,
like
we
He stopped bringing us particular keyboard around just because the Dubows were too good on it.
that's yes. So yes, I try and keep them wanting more from me because then they'll keep me around. But no, it's really fun. I think something that could relate to stand-up comedy and all this is, like Amin was saying, for him, I've been in the band only for 2 years, but for him, this one of these songs is having that clicking moment, sometimes 10 years later, which could be kind of similar to, I imagine as a stand-up comic, you wouldn't continue to use a bit for 10 years if it didn't have that clicking moment yet. But I think that the moment when it all comes together is it kind of comes, you never know what it is that's going to make that moment click, and you just keep trying different things, and it really
uh,
will come whenever it's ready. It's like you just got to keep cooking the soup and adding different ingredients, trying different things out.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say like if there's anybody listening who is thinking about, starting a band or, starting a project and unsure what to do, it's just like there's no way to learn other than to start and follow your instincts and you can try and find other people in your local scene and talk to them and pick their brains. But really, experience is the greatest teacher over the years. And it's tough, but if you can make it fun, then it's a lot less tough. And then to anybody else that's not, going for anything like this, just understand how much work goes into making the experiences that you want. Like, these bands that you go to see them because they give you something, they give you energy, or they make you feel good, or they're an expression that enhances your life, and a lot goes into that. So I think a lot of people are conscious of that, but the more people out there that can be like, throwing fist bumping the sound guys and congratulations to the light guys and all that shit, and respecting the crew of the venues and tipping the bartenders well, it just helps everybody, helps the scene go. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback off that and say big shout out to all the people who aren't in the bands running the things behind the boards, behind the curtains. None of that could happen. And so this is a really cool podcast that you've drummed up here. It's a cool thing to shine a light on the whole world of people, because like you said, if people are fist bumping the sound guy, they're taking care of the light guy, the whole experience is going to be elevated. I'm sure
Yep.
that,
Yeah,
as a
man.
lighting engineer, you feed off of the crowd energy the same way the band does. Sound engineer, same thing. So it's, together we can all lock in and make sweet shows happen. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, happy to have you guys on. And just on that note, yeah, when you're there jamming in the crowd, the front of house guy, the audio guy, the lighting director, he's jamming right along with you. Give him a high five. Thank the people, working at the venue. Thank the crew. You don't need to profusely go into like tales of thanks, but just a little smile and a high five goes such a long way.
Also, just in addition to that, thank you to all the friends and family and the fans that give us something to do, give us a platform to keep doing what we love to do. In addition to that, so tip your bartenders as well.
Always tip your bartenders.
Just want to throw it out there that if you guys would like to see any of the DIY, what we're doing in house, go check it out. We have socials all over the place, and one of the best things you could look at to see sort of us in action and how we're doing things is a Stormy Chromer GoFundMe. If you can go check that out and help
Links in
us,
the
maybe if you
description,
feel
folks.
like it. We have a new album full of some material we're really proud of, and we're working hard to do it properly. So anything helps, and thanks for having us on here.
Oh, absolutely. And for everyone who's listening or watching, all of the Stormy Chromer links for their music, for their GoFundMe, for their website, for their socials, anything and everything you can think of is going to be found in the description of this episode, folks.
Yeah, in addition to, everything everybody else has said, also all the guys in the studio, all the engineers and all of that who make it sound like real music.
Absolutely. It's there we go, everybody together. There we go. We gotta get like the tidal wave. Everybody on three. Three, two, one. I'm the only one. Yeah. I love it. All right.
We just dabbed our vapes out, bros. That is that's serious business.
I don't think we could end the episode any better. Stormy Chromer, thank you guys so much for coming on. It has been such a pleasure. Folks, it is hard to believe we are almost done with season 3 of Secondhand Talent. Happy summer at the time of this airing. I hope you guys are enjoying whatever you're doing. I know Steiner in the past is definitely enjoying what he's doing right now, having Stormy Chromer on the show. Thank y'all so much. See you next Wednesday. And that's a podcast. There we go. We did it, y'all.
Hell yeah, man.